There's only one HBCU on the way too early preseason FCS top 25. I can't say I don't agree with the inclusion of this one team and the exclusion of everybody else. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. And if you put down a $5 bet that wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets. We'll wrap up today's episode with the bag. When I'm talking about that bag, I mean big money that Michael Vick is getting to be the head coach of Norfolk State University. In segment 2, we'll take a look at what I think is actually a really interesting conversation, and it's who's going to play quarterback for South Carolina State and why I think the transfer portal route does make sense. But we kick this whole thing off with Jackson State because the JSU Tigers, the reigning defending Celebration Bowl champions, are the only HBCU that finds themselves in Craig Haley's way too early FCS top 25. The only problem I have with the list is that he called it way too early. And as a football fanatic, somebody who honestly would do this show 365 days about football, I genuinely would, but I think it'd be a little distant to other sports. But I would do this. This is how much I love that sport. There's no such thing as a way too early top 25. I want to talk about this 24/7, 365. So that's my only real gripe with this as far as the HBCUs go. But I can't say that I'm upset about Jackson State being the only one. I can't say that I don't think Jackson State deserves their spot. And I don't think many people would say that Jackson State doesn't deserve their spot. To me, an FCS top 25 is a collection of knowledge and expressed based off of what we collected last year and how we project this year, but it's mostly based off of last year. You haven't even gotten through a signing day. You don't even have recruiting classes to base a lot of this off of. So as we sit here today, it's about who can retain the most of their core, who can retain the most of their talent. And that's one thing that Jackson State has done at a very high level. Now, I'll tell you the two reasons that I expected Jackson State to be on this list. One is continued success. It's history, right? Just recent history. And the second part is the retention of talent, continuity. Those are the two biggest reasons that you should expect Jackson State to be here. Let's look at the final FCS top 25, because like I said, this way too early preseason top 25 is really mostly based off of what we saw last year. So where did everybody stand at the end of the 2024 season? This was January 7th, 2025 that this was last updated. So you have Jackson State at 18, you have Tennessee State at 19, and you have South Carolina State at 24. North Carolina Central finds themselves in what essentially is like the honorable mentions, but it just means they got votes to be here, but they weren't in the top 25. I believe we should stick to the three squads who were in it. I just felt the need to mention the Eagles' presence. Jackson State versus South Carolina State and Tennessee State. The thing they have is the exact reason I said they should be on this list. They have recent history and continuity. Those are the two things they have over both of those squads. Let's just talk recent history real quick because I think it's brief. When you're talking about recent history, when you're talking about the conversation of, well, why does the past matter? The past matters because when you've been good for a couple of years, people give you the benefit of the doubt. When you've shown the ability to be good year after year, people just assume you'll be able to continue your success from the previous campaign. That's how people feel. And it makes a lot of sense because we've seen flash in the pans, and sometimes they get that love, but we've seen flash in the pans and they don't come back. But Jackson State has won the SWAC 3 years in a row, or excuse me, 3 out of the last 4 years, right? So when you're looking at what they've done recently, what's to say that they can't come back and win the SWAC again? They just did it with TC Taylor. So the whole, well, that was the last regime argument, that becomes null and void now. Now you combine 3 out of the last 4 years with two different head coaches, Jackson State has won the SWAC. More specifically, if you're looking towards 2025, that's when the continuity comes in. I've addressed what recent history can do for opinions and narratives, but if we're just talking about actually on the field, it's not as if they only made it because they've been good recently. Jackson State has all the pieces to be good again because they have a lot of the pieces from last season when they were great. They have a lot of pieces from that Celebration Bowl team. Jackson State has a lot of pieces that were on that Celebration Bowl team in critical areas. You have Jacobian Morgan coming back. When you compare it to the other two squads that we're talking about on this FCS Top 25 from last year, South Carolina State, they're without Eric Phoenix. Tennessee State, they're without Draylon Ellis. And that's just the most important position. The most important position being a question mark of who it's going to be will always make it difficult for people to project that you'll be very good. It's difficult to do that. And even with that being the case, Tennessee State still got an honorable mention. This is genuinely an honorable mention. They believe that they are a candidate to being in this top 25. So that tells you how good they believe Tennessee State to be. But they lost Boogie Trotter too. But it's not as if Jackson State just retained Jacobian Morgan. See, I say they lost Draylon Ellis and Boogie Trotter. But then I flip it over to Jackson State and I say they kept their quarterback. They kept many people on that defensive front. They kept, now it's not to say they didn't lose people because they did lose Joshua Nobles, but you have Jacobian Morgan, you have Matthews and Terrell at the running back position who they will probably take a step back because Irv Mulligan is just a freaking dog. But outside of that, I still expect them to be a really good run team. I expect them to still be a squad who leans into the run because I just think that that's going to be their formula. And I believe with a bruiser like Matthews and a speedster like Terrell, no, you don't have one guy, but you have two players who have distinct roles and they can excel in the run game as a pairing as opposed to a solo lead back. And at the end of the day, unless you're just looking for, oh, I want this guy to achieve this, and we're talking about team success, that's all that matters. If you get it done with one or you get it done with two, as long as you're getting it done. They have Pulliam and Taylor at the linebacker position, right? The wide receivers, oh my God. They still have Fortillion. They still have Spencer. They still got guys coming back. They still got the receiver from Mississippi Valley State, Rembert. They still have all of these players who are coming back or are coming to the team. So Jackson State's inclusion on this list makes a whole lot of sense. But what about other people's exclusion? Because like I said, I do not believe that people are arguing that Jackson State does not deserve their placement. I don't think they're arguing that. Instead, they may argue, what about South Carolina State? What about Tennessee State? And I would just tell you, Tennessee State lost some talent. They are still an honorable mention. For South Carolina State, I believe that there is a tad bit of show and prove somewhere. I understand that Chennis Berry has had a long line of success over the last 3 years, consecutive conference championships, doing it in the SIAC and then going up to the MEAC. Like, I get that, right? But at the same time, I do believe that there's people who still want, oh, you got to show me something. You're losing some of those pieces on offense and defense, specifically Eric Phoenix. Who's going to be your quarterback? This is going to be a very fun season. And quite frankly, I cannot wait. This is what I've been here for. This is what I came for every single year. Jackson State is beyond the show and prove stance. They're beyond that stage, right? They have shown that they can repeat success over and over and over. And if you give me my quarterback, you give me multiple key pieces on defense, and you give me TC Taylor, I feel confident about me doing it again. I can't wait to watch this football season. Oh my Lord. Anyway, as we push forward, we're going to move to South Carolina State because I talk about the question mark at quarterback. How about we address that question mark at quarterback as we continue with Locked On HBCU? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're switching things up over here at FanDuel. Listen. FanDuel said no more 250. We finna up the score. It's the playoffs. I hit that Roman Reigns. We finna up the score because now FanDuel is giving you $300 back in bonus bets as long as you put down a winning, that's the key word, a winning $5 bet. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting than they already are. The juice in my voice, the excitement in my tone. This is because of the NFL playoffs, and it's only been heightened because of FanDuel. I want you to go make some money, whether it's the NFL playoffs or maybe you're a basketball fan who's just going to mooch off of that and make a little bit of extra cash on your basketball knowledge. Go to FanDuel.com, put down a $5 winning bet, and you'll get $300 back in bonus bets with a $5 winning bet. Go to FanDuel.com. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're going to check out the Locked On College Football Show. It's all about the big dance. It's Notre Dame versus Ohio State. I can't imagine the preseason packages or the pregame packages that we are about to see, but I can't imagine the extraordinary commentary that you could see and hear on Locked On College Football. So make sure you're checking out and getting prepared for the biggest game of the year. South Carolina State has a question mark at quarterback, and they believe the answer has come in the form of Amari Jones, or at least one of, or a possible. I will not sit here with the lack of experience that Amari Jones, though being a transfer player, he has no experience. I do believe that he is the style of quarterback that you may be looking for, though. Let's get into everything of what that means, because I feel like that's kind of a loaded statement. Let's break that down a little bit. So obviously, South Carolina State just came off of a magical year. They come short. They come short against Jackson State. But you know what? You're going into next year, and the MEAC is always up for grabs. The MEAC is always up for grabs. But one of the things that you have to replace is your quarterback. There's no Eric Phoenix. And when Eric Phoenix was gone, it was Ryan Stubblefield. There's no Ryan Stubblefield either, which means now who is your starter? Your starter and backup are adios. So what do? South Carolina State decides we're going to hit the portal. This is something that I feel is important, and we need to make sure we put out there. Just because you acquire a guy does not mean he is your guy. Sometimes you get in the portal and people get beat out in practice. Sometimes you get into the portal and it's not even you get beat out. It's just, hey, we were just putting you in the mix. Let's not hype up this portal guy. We still like our young players, but it's a whole lot of youth. It is a whole lot of youth at South Carolina State on the quarterback position. After you get past Phoenix and Stubblefield, it's young guys. You have Amari Jones, who comes in with 3 years of collegiate experience. No. We got to find a new way to talk about these guys. See, sometimes when we talk about these transfer portal players who ain't playing their last destination, we still like to use the word experience. I'm guilty of it, so I'm not trying to sound holier than thou. But we use this word experience. You don't have any experience. You have knowledge, right? Like you were able to see it. But I wouldn't say you have experience when talking about what's on the field. Maybe you know how a collegiate program is run. Maybe you have that. But unless we're talking about, I don't even think that that's a real advantage, in my opinion. You haven't tested the speed of the game. You haven't seen the athleticism. Like, you haven't been on the field. You ain't played a snap. You did practices. So to a degree, you will have advantage over a fresh out of high school kid in that. But I don't think it's a large difference. I believe you need to get on the field for me to use the experience argument. But to me, I will use a knowledge argument because you've been in that field, in that film room. You've broken down film on a collegiate level. So you have that experience. You have seen the college experience close. You haven't experienced college, but you have seen it, right? Like for example, let's say that my big brother, I'm the oldest kid, right? So let's say that my big brother goes to school, and every now and then I go up to campus and I kick it with him. I feel like I saw the college experience, but I didn't really experience the college experience, not fully. I don't think you would necessarily say it. You might have got a taste. You might have got a taste. You got a sample, but you didn't go and get a meal. You didn't do that. Most people, I'll say. Most people. That's how I feel about transfer portal players who never played. And Amari Jones has never played. He has the knowledge from being at FIU. He has the knowledge of seeing how programs are supposed to run, how collegiate quarterbacks are supposed to practice, how he has all of those things. And you would hope that maturity, you may even have maturity over those players. And here comes where I say the type of quarterback that South Carolina State needs. Because though I make the distinguishing, or I distinguish between experience and knowledge, it doesn't mean that I don't find knowledge valuable. It's slightly less valuable than experience. It doesn't measure up, in my opinion, but it is still a very valuable tool. You've seen these things for 3 years now. You redshirt the first year, then you don't play for 2 years. So now you're coming in as a redshirt junior with 2 more years of eligibility for South Carolina State. Just in case you were curious on exactly how long he could be with the Bulldogs. This is my thought process. I bring in a quote-unquote veteran quarterback in hopes that he is my guy, but it always is going to be a competition. And if those young guys beat out the veteran, then that's my guy. That's the thing. Oh, why bring in a competition? Because the cream will rise to the crop. At the end of the day, why bring in competition? Because those who are the best should rise. And if my young guy is better, I will play him. You bring in competition when you truly believe it to be a competition. I'll use an example. I love my Saints. At the end of the day, anybody who knows me knows I love my Saints. The New Orleans Saints brought in Willie Gay this offseason. And I remember a lot of us fans were excited. Oh, Willie Gay could be something. About 2 weeks. I don't even think it's 2 weeks. It might have been like 2 days. It was very soon in the training camp. Willie Gay was competing with Pete Werner, and Pete Werner got a big-time contract. At that moment, in my opinion, I realized this was not a real competition. That is an example of a facade to certain degrees. To certain degrees. What was being said, what was being communicated within that room, within that building, within those conversations of negotiation, I don't know. But from the outside looking in, to me, it felt like some funny business. If you bring in Amari Jones and you know he's your starter no matter what, I don't think I can co-sign that. But if you bring in Amari Jones and say, yeah, I think that's going to be our starter, but we're going to allow someone to change our mind, that's a different conversation. Some people aren't leaving the room open to have their mind changed. That's when I have a problem. Because it leads to you being stubborn. It leads to you having to be double as good as this player for you to even get that shot. No, if I'm a quarter, if this dude's a 1.2 and I'm a 1.3, put the 1.3 in. Right? Like put the 1.3 in. You don't have to be much better than Amari Jones. You just got to be better. So at the end of the day, as long as it's a true competition, everybody should have the opportunity to be who they want to be, right? Or to be where they want to be, I should say. Now, as we push forward, I want to talk about that bag. I want to talk about that big duffel bag that Norfolk State just dropped in Michael Vick's office. They came with everything. And let's break that down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. This message is brought to you by Prizepicks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prizepicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prizepicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now that it's playoff time, I love the playoffs. This is my time to shine. I can't wait for that Texans versus Chiefs game, but boy, I can't lie to you. That I want to call it Lamar versus Josh so bad. The Ravens versus Bills is the one to watch. So for me, this is the season of hot takes. I'm going on Prizepicks Lamar Jackson for more than 250 passing yards. Travis Kelce for over 70. That's what I'm going with. You ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use the code Locked On College to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prizepicks. Prizepicks, run your game. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. I almost forgot which hand goes where, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Michael Vick got that bag, y'all. I'm going to be honest with you. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Vick got that bag. Oh, my God. A base of $400,000, which makes him actually the second highest paid HBCU coach. The second highest paid HBCU coach, but the highest paid in the MEAC or the SWAC. Would you like to know the only head coach to get paid more than Michael Vick? I think you could guess it. I'll give you 3 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. All right, good job. Eddie George. If you said Eddie George at Tennessee State, you would be correct, Mundo. That is the only person to get paid more than Michael Vick. Wonder what they have in common. So I was talking to Mo about this, right? We were talking about the bag, and it was very brief, but you look at that article that they wrote, and it compares Michael Vick's salary to Dawson Odom's salary, which we all know. He was the previous coach of Norfolk State. They wasn't going to get paid the same. But Michael Vick is getting paid $160,000 more than Dawson Odoms. So Dawson Odoms was sitting about 240,000, right? 240,000. As far as all of this goes, I want to make sure I have the right one up because this one is really interesting to me. But as far as that goes, he almost doubles his contract. And this is, to me, important that we highlight the bonuses. I don't know what I thought these celebrity coaches were getting paid. I don't know if I thought it was on par and it was like, hey, we don't really need the money, because I feel like I remember Deion not getting paid a lot and be like, I don't really need the money or something like that. But yeah, whatever. The next highest is Chennis Berry in the MEAC. He's at 300,000. And why am I missing this number? I'm trying to find the Chennis Berry and the Trey Oliver number. But I'm not really a pocket watcher, y'all. That's not really my bag. I'm gonna be honest with you. But yeah, this Berry is getting paid $300,000. And even saying that out loud is so weird to me. It's like, bro, really? Why am I having this conversation? But I can't find the one that has everybody else. So let's just stick to Michael Vick. But Michael Vick is getting $400,000 as a base salary, which means no matter what, he's getting that. But what if he has some level of success? What incentives could he get? He'll get $10,000. He would get $10,000 if he makes it to the Celebration Bowl. So essentially, if he wins the conference, he makes it. He gets an extra $10,000. The FCS playoffs, if he wins a game, he gets $15,000. So there's no incentive for making it to the playoffs. There's only incentives for winning games in the playoffs. If he gets a Coach of the Year, it's a bonus between 2.5 and 5,000. This is interesting. So Michael Vick will be compensated a little less. See, maybe that number is wrong, because I heard that Eddie George was getting $425,000. But this article says that William & Mary head coach is the highest paid at basically $410,000. So maybe those numbers aren't exactly correct. I don't know, but I heard that Eddie George is making $425K. Regardless, you're looking at the two NFL players who are still making major bread. That's the way that I view it. This is also one thing that's interesting. They are rewarding him not only for high level of success, but also for just increasing and improving the program, right? Like if Michael Vick just improves the program to being a top 3 squad, in the conference, he'll get an automatic year bonus or automatic extension, excuse me. Since we're using bonus and incentives, I want to make sure I use the proper wording. If Norfolk State ends 3rd or higher, he gets 1 year extra. So let's just look at last year's standings. Obviously, South Carolina State was 5-0. North Carolina Central was 4-1. We know those are the 2 top teams. Morgan State was at 3rd with a 3-2 conference record, while Norfolk State was at 4th with a 2-3 conference record. Let me tell you just how close that this was. Norfolk State versus Norfolk State versus Morgan State was a 1-point loss. A 1-point loss. So let's just say that you swing the tie by 2 points. Michael Vick comes in and swings that game by 2 points. He gets an extra year along his contract. I like what they're doing. I think that this is a positive addition. I think incentives are always something that's fun to look at. If he's a coach of the year, gets a little minor something. If he wins the conference, he gets $10K. If he just improves the team to being a competitor, they're saying we're going to give you an extra year automatically. Let's read this lingo because I thought that this part was good. Vick's contract is currently for 4 years, ending December 21st, 2028. However, he will be entitled to an automatic 1-year extension if Norfolk State finishes in the top half of the MEAC standings by his 3rd coaching year. So it has to be by year 3. If he does it in his last year, it doesn't give him an extra bonus. But if in year 2, they all of a sudden are a 3-2 squad or maybe a 4-1 squad, he's going to get that extra year. It's interesting to me. It's interesting. I think that that's the best one because we all know things shouldn't be automatic. We all know that things should be a process, but rewarding that process typically doesn't happen. So shout out to Norfolk State dropping that bag off. We always talk about HBCUs not having no money, but Michael Vick being one of the highest paid coaches in the FCS landscape, somebody was dropping the bag off. So anyway, y'all drop the bag off to me if you want to. Anyway, tomorrow, we'll have Coach G on the show. Gerald Huggins is going to be coming on to talk about his preseason top 10 and how it looks now that the season is over. Who's the biggest disappointment? Who's exceeded expectations the most? And just in general, when he looks at that list, how does he feel? You have to wait till tomorrow to find all of those things out. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.